We begin a new Perek today, Daf Kuf Zayin, Perek Beis Shammai. This Perek will be discussing the halachas of miyun, which we learned about a few times earlier in the Masechta, referring to a girl, a ketana. So minat Torah, a ketana, only her father can marry her off. But if she has no father, or if she's out of her father's possession because she once was married before and then got divorced and she's still a ketana, so then Chachamim were misakin, they didn't want this girl to just be there available for anybody and she can't get married. In those times, people would get married at that young age, and if she can't get married, so then she's sort of stuck and she could become hefker to anybody. So Chachamim were misakin that her mother or her brothers could marry her off. But after they marry her off, because minat Torah it's not a full marriage, they were also misakin that she could be memayin in the marriage. She could reject this marriage. So here in the Mishnah, it brings a few machlokes in between Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel, how exactly this miyun applies. Zok the Mishnah, Beis Shammai yomrim. The Beis Shammai say, Ein memanin ela arusais. This whole halacha that this ketana could be memayin, reject this marriage, is only arusais. If there was only the first stage of marriage, the kiddushin, which is the kesef, the ring, but they never lived together. The second stage of marriage, nisuin, never took place. Over there, miyun applies. The second stage, though, there's no miyun. Once they're fully married, that's it. Beis Hillel says, arusais unesuais. Miyun applies for this ketana, whether there was only a edison or even a nisuin, the full marriage, still she could be memayin. Beis Shammai yomrim, another machlokes here. Beis Shammai say, bebal, that this ketana, she could be memayin, she could reject the marriage with her husband, if she's married to the person, and she could reject it. V'loi biyavam, but not, she can't reject if her husband died and she was never memayin in her husband. So for a yavam now that she has a connection to, that has to be miyavim her, she can't reject it now. At this point, it's too late. Beis Hillel say again.
How can she do yibum? It's a isha soch. It's only with the rabbanon the whole nesuin.
Yeah, and chanami, but with the rabbanon she's b'choyev in yibum, all with the rabbanon and chanami. Okay. Beis Hillel say bebal ubiyavam, that she could be memayin, she could reject both in her husband that she was married to, and even after he passed away, she could reject it also in the connection that she has to the yavam. We'll see in the Gemara regarding the miyun, and for a yavam, there's two different pshatim in the Gemara. We'll see. Beis Shammai say befanav, the miyun has to be in front of her husband. Beis Hillel befanav v'shalei befanav. The miyun could be in front of the husband and even not in front of the husband. Another machlokes is Beis Shammai yomrim bebezdin. The miyun has to be done in front of a bezdin. Beis Hillel say bebezdin v'shalei bebezdin. It's done in a bezdin or not in a bezdin. Amr lem Beis Hillel Beis Shammai. Another thing, this is a separate thing here. Beis Hillel says to Beis Shammai, mima enes v'hi ketana. So this girl, she's married off as a ketana, she could reject the marriage, afil dalid v'hei pam, 4 or 5 times. She got married to one husband, she doesn't like it, she leaves the marriage, and she gets married again, and again she rejects it, as many times. Amr lem Beis Shammai, so Beis Shammai said about this, no, we can't allow this to happen. Ein benois Yisrael hefker. The daughters in the Bayidin should not be treated in such a way of being hefker. Ella, mimma enes, she's memayin one time if she got married to someone, if they married her brother, her mother married her off. Umamtenes atchetagdil, and then they can't marry her off again and again. She waits until she becomes a gedayla. Vitimoin, and she rejects the previous marriage. Vitinase, and she gets married again. And now once she's married as a gedayla, she's married. So that the Mishnah over here mentioned that she rejects this marriage twice. She's mima me'enes. She waits, she becomes a gedayla, and then she rejects again. The Gemara will explain why does it say again v'timan. So the Gemara will explain here the opinion of Beis Shammai brought in the beginning of the Mishnah that the miyun of this ketana is only for an arusa and not for an asua. Why is this so? Omer Rav Yudah Shmuel, my time with the Beis Shammai, what's the reason for Beis Shammai's opinion? So the Gemara is going to bring a few pshatim for this. So the first pshat of here is lefisha ein t'nai b'nesuin. Because when it comes to nisuin, which is the full marriage, there is no t'nai. You can't make any conditions for a marriage. We had this before in the Gemara. So the point is by edison, when there's the first stage of marriage, a person can set a condition that the marriage should only take effect if this and this t'nai is fulfilled. But by nisuin, that t'nai is not accepted. And Rashi here explains what this means is, even if a person made a t'nai for the marriage, But once, by the Kedushin that is, by the first stage of marriage, even if he made a Tanai, but once he went and fully married her and he lived with her like husband and wife, at that point, because of the connection that he has to her, the chibah, the love, the Tanai that he made is off. He's meichelit, it's gone. So therefore there is no Tanai anymore once he fully marries her. So what's the problem? If there's no Tanai for Nisuan, now if you're going to say that this Katana that's fully married to her husband could just walk out from the marriage, reject the marriage, people are going to come to make a mistake and say, you know how she walked out from the marriage? Because yesh Tanai ben Nisuan. Because there was a condition that was made over here, and the condition was not fulfilled, so retroactively the whole marriage was batal, and therefore she walked out. So this will be a cause for confusion, for people to make this mistake and think that there could be a t'nai that you have to accept even regarding the suin, and you could walk out even from a full marriage. And that's not true. So therefore Chachamim did not want ever such a thing, that even a katana should not be able to just walk out from a full marriage. Fragt the Gemara, okay, so that's by a nisuin. Nisuin means when they actually live together. So, but nisuin, the full marriage, does not actually only happen when there's marital relations, when they live with one another. But if there was a chuppah, whatever chuppah means, there's different pshatim of chuppah, whether the chuppah that we have today, literally, or chuppah which is the yichud, but even without any nivala, there were no marital relations between them. What are you going to say regarding this? L'chayda over here, the Gemara is thinking when it asks this, that over here a t'nai still could take effect. So the truth is that a t'nai does happen, it could happen over here, so there's no concern of any confusion that could happen. Answers the Gemara, no, it's not true. Lefisha ain't t'nai b'chuppah. The truth is, even once there's a chuppah, there's also no t'nai. The very fact that this person is after Edison, and now there's a chuppah already, there was a yichud, so there's already a close connection between them, there's no t'nai anymore. The husband is meichel on the t'nai. So again, the point is that Chachamim did not want a ketana to walk out from a marriage that was that there was a chuppah, in order not to confuse it with a regular chuppah, and people will think that even after a regular chuppah, the t'nai is still in effect, and it's not. Fragt the Gemara, but there's another case of nisuin where there was no bia and there was no chuppah either. And what is that? Masar av l'shluchei abal. What happens if a father gives over his daughter to shluchim of the husband? So once he gave her into the hands of the shluchim of the husband, that's considered to be nisuin. She left his house and she's now in the hands of the shluchim of the husband. Ma'ikele meimar. What are we going to say over here? So in other words, the Gemara's question is, over here we're not actually talking about a father that's giving over his daughter to shluchei abal. Over here we're talking about a case where it's the mother or the brothers that are marrying her off. But the question is, in a case where the mother or the brother married her off, and it's already nisuin. How is it nisuin though? Not because there was any bia, not because there was any chuppah, but the mother or the brother gave her over to the shluchei abal, and that's already considered to be nisuin. And here, Beis Shammai says that she can't walk out of the marriage anymore. Why not? In a regular case, if the father gave her over to the shluchei abal, a t'nai is still in effect. So if she walks out from the marriage, so if people will say she walked out because there's a t'nai, why do we care? It's taka true that in such a situation, a t'nai would still be in effect. So the Gemara answers, you're right, but loy plug rabbanan. Once Chachamim made this gzeira that regarding nisuin, we don't want a katana walking out of a nisuin for people not to become confused, so loy plug. They said any type of nisuin, even this kind of nisuin, where really a t'nai would still be in effect, Chachamim said that the gzeira still applies. Beis Hillel disagree with this, and Beis Hillel say, "May the yadi people know the nisui katana derabanan. People know that she's a katana, and the whole marriage of a katana is only midirabanan, and people are not going to confuse it with a regular marriage and think that by a regular marriage you can walk out because you can say that if there was a condition, based on that condition, you can walk out. No one will make that comparison. No one will be confused." Rabbi and Rav Yosef Damri Tarvayo. Rabbi and Rav Yosef give a different reason for what Beis Shammai said. The time of the Beis Shammai, the reason for Beis Shammai that there's no miyun by nesuin of a ketana, lefisha ein adam ma'aseh bi'ilasai bi'ilas nus. A person does not want that his marriage should look like that there was a marriage of znus. What happens over here? He gets married to this ketana, and all of a sudden one day this ketana picks herself up and is mamayim the marriage and walks out. So it looks like the people that the whole marriage was a znus. Even though the truth is that he did it according to the Takanim b'Derabanan, and it was all done properly, but it'll look like the people that it's a znus. So if it'll look like the people this way, no one's going to ever want to get married to this katana. Chachamim made this whole takana that people should marry this katana, so she shouldn't just be hefker. But if you're going to let her walk out after she's already fully married to him, so it's just going to look like a znus, people are not going to want to do this b'chlal. So if he never had any relations with her, there was just a chuppah, so why here should Chachamim be misakin that she's already called a nesua? And even here, Beis Shammai said that she can't walk out. Why not over here? It's not going to look like there was any znos, he never had any relations with her. And it says the Gemara still, people are not even going to want to make a chuppah, because it looks like you made a chuppah with the purpose to go and have relations with this girl without a proper marriage. V'haraya, look, she just walked out on him. So even the chuppah doesn't look nice. A person is not even going to want to do any chuppah with her. So therefore, they said, once the chuppah takes effect, that's it. She can't walk out anymore. So again, the Gemara asks, like it asked before, what's if there was no chuppah even? It's just that the father, or really it means the brothers over here, so they gave over to the shluchim of the Baal. So over here, there's nothing that doesn't look nice about this. Why should a husband not be ready to do this? That at least that in the hands of the shliach, that this girl should be given over to be brought to him without any chuppah yet, without having any relations with him yet. What's the concern? Why would the person not be ready to do this? Says the Gemara again. You're right. In this case, there is no concern, but leplug rabbanan. Chachamim made the gzeira that once there's a status of nisuin, that she's already married to him, there's no more her walking out from this nisuin. Beis Hillel, and why are they not concerned about this? That people are not going to want to marry this girl if they know she can walk out on him, and it just looks like a znos. People won't think that. When this katana gets married to him, it's done properly, the way a regular marriage is done, with a kiddushin and then with a ksubah. Nobody's going to come and think that this marriage was just a znos. So therefore he wasn't concerned about this. Rav Papa Amar, another reason for what Beis Shammai said. Rav Papa says the reason is Taime de Beis Shammai Mishom Peiri. The reason of Beis Shammai's opinion is because of the peiris. This is going back to something that we learned earlier in the Masechta, which is nichse maluk. When a woman gets married, so whatever she owns comes into the husband's possession. To what extent? That he can eat from the peiris. He can eat from the peiris, from her properties, whatever fruits come out, but not from the keren itself, from the principle, from the properties itself. That belongs to her. And if he ever divorces her, he has to give it back to her. So that's the reason for Beis Shammai. And Taimi de Beis Hillel, Mishom Peiri. And the reason of Beis Hillel that he says that she could walk out of the marriage is also connected to the same thing regarding these peiris, that he can eat from that nichse maluk. And the Gemara explains what this means. Taimi de Beis Shammai Mishom Peiri. The reason why Beis Shammai says that once she's married to him, so therefore now because he could be eating from this peiris, so therefore we don't want her to be allowed to reject this marriage. And the reason is as follows. The Yomrit Nesua Timon. If you're going to say that once he's fully married to her, so now she can just walk out from this marriage. So if the husband knows this, if the husband knows that she could just pick herself up one day and walk out, so Shamit va'achaluhu mina, he's going to go and eat from her properties as much as he can. He's going to take all the peiris, and not only the peiris, but he's, as the Mefarshim say, he's actually going to eat even the keren, even from the principal herself. He's going to cut down the trees. He's going to try to take for himself as much as possible. Why? Because he says to himself, the self lo make bakaima. Let me just take advantage as much as possible. She's going to walk out on me one day. And the halacha is, once she walks out from him, he doesn't have to pay back any of the peiris, and actually even from the keren. Whatever he took, he doesn't have to pay back after the fact. So we're afraid that if she could walk out on him, so he's going to think to himself, let me take as much advantage as I can from her before she walks out on me. So therefore, Beis Shammai said, once they're married, we don't want it to become such a situation. She can't walk out on him, and he won't take advantage of her. Beis Hillel, because of the very same reason that we're concerned about these peiris, that he might take advantage of her, he actually holds that we do allow her to be memayin. Adarab, on the contrary, there's the opposite svara. Kivin the amrit timayin. Since you're saying that she always has this threat in her hands, that she could walk out on him, ashbuchi mashbach lahu. He's going to do whatever he can to improve the condition of her properties. Why? Because Savar, he's going to think to himself, the Eloi, if I'm not going to treat her properties well, so so then her relatives are going to advise her that she should leave me, and they're going to have her leave him. Adarabah, the fact that he always has that threat over his head that she could walk out on him, so he's going to treat her even better. He's going to make sure that her property should be in good condition, so she shouldn't walk out on him. Another reason for the machlokes of Bishame and Beisil, Rava says, Haina time the Bishame, the reason for Bishame is she'ein adam terech besuuda umafsida. A person is not going to be matriach himself to make a whole suuda, and then he's going to lose it all. So when do you make the main suda of a chasana? Not by the edison, but by the nisuin. When you're making a chasana, you're hiring a caterer and you're paying thousands of dollars and you're making a ganze suda. And then 10 days later, or whenever she wants, she leaves him. A person will not be ready to spend all this money in a suda just to know that he could lose his wife any day. So therefore, this whole takon of Chazal is not going to accomplish anything. Who's going to want to get married to her knowing that he's going to lose her the next day? Beisilol holds tarvayu nichuluhu. Both the husband and wife actually don't mind the fact that he's married to her, even if she decides to walk out on him. People will say, "Oh, this person, he was months married." I guess the fact that a Rashi Taisus over here brings that, at least regarding a woman, it says that the woman wants to be married. No matter what, Tav l'meisav tandum l'meisav armul, she wants to be married to somebody, and even the fact that there's a rumor about her, or there's a fact that she was once married to somebody, so it sort of shows like, oh, she's part of society, she got married, okay, but now she left, but she was once married. And for the man as well, there's a certain advantage, just the very fact that he was once married. So a person would be matriach himself to create a whole ceremony with asuda, just so that people should say that he was once married. Going to the next thing, it said of the Mishnah, Beishami says that she could only reject the marriage for the husband himself. But after the husband passed away, she can't reject the marriage of the Yavam. But Beis Hillel says she could reject the marriage of the Yavam. So what is this talking about? Amar Rabbi said, when it says here that Beis Hillel says she could reject the marriage of the Yavam, it meant Mama'enes lima'amorei. She could be memayin, the maimer of the yavam. As we learned earlier in the Masechta, the maimer of the yavam is that takanim d'Rabbanan, that a yavam could be mekadesh, a yavam, like a regular kedushin. Minatayra, a yavam could only be mekadesh through bia. But midrabbanan, he gives her a ring, just like a regular marriage, and so there's a kedushin midrabbanan, so that's what this ketana could reject, this marriage of the yavam. But ve'ena mima'enez lizikasai. However, the zika, before there was any maimer, the very fact that minatayra now, or it's really not minatayra because this whole marriage she had to the brother was only midrabanan, but this zikah that continues from the previous brother that now connects her to this yavam, that's something that this ketana cannot revoke. She cannot remove this zikah. Rav Chizda explains, my time with Rabbi Shia, what's the reason? Why can't she remove that? Maimer demidaito, maimer, which is the marriage that he's mekadesher with her consent. Like every marriage, it has to be with her consent. So matzi akra, that's something that she could uproot. Zikah the balkarcha, the connection that he has, which comes from the previous marriage, that's against her will. It's not up to her. So le matzi akra. So that's something that she cannot uproot. It's not in her power b'chlal. But the Gemara asks on this pshat, v'harei biyeh the balkarcha, if she actually gets married to the yavam. So this is something that's not up to her. The bia of a yavam with a yavama, you don't need her consent. Right? It could be even against her will, as we learned earlier in the Masechta. Umatzi akra, and still she could reject the marriage to the yavam. Right? This is what Beis Hillel said in the Mishnah, that she could reject the marriage of the Baal, and she could also reject the marriage of the yavam. So similar to the marriage of the Baal, she could reject the marriage to him. Once the Yavam is miyavam, that bia she could for sure reject. And that's something that's not with her consent. So you see that she can reject even something that's not with her consent. So why the zikah could she not reject? Ella, the Gemara says a slightly different shot. Bia maimer, when it comes to bia, if the marriage that there is, the way the Torah said that yibum should be done through bia, or maimer, whether the marriage with the Rabbanon, the hu ka'avid, which the husband is the one that's doing this. So matzi akra, so she's now facing this husband that just created this marriage to her, so she can uproot that by rejecting him. Zike, the Rahman, Rami Allah, but Zike is not something that this husband just now did, but it's something that comes already from before, from the previous husband, that the Torah said that connection of the previous husband continues. So that, le matzi akra, that she can't uproot. So the point basically over here is that if she wanted to uproot the marriage from the previous husband, she had a chance to do that when he was alive, and she was facing him directly. If she did not do that, and now he passed away, and now the Torah says that marriage continues, that connection, because of that marriage continues, whether she likes it or not, that's something that she can't uproot. It's too late. Okay, but now Ula says a whole different thing. No, Ula disagrees with Rabbi Shia. Ula says, Mima'enes av lizikasai. She could also reject the whole zikah, that connection that comes from the previous marriage. She could uproot that. My time, why is Ula arguing? Nisue kamakakra. When she's uprooting the marriage, so it's not because she now has the koyach to uproot the zikah that's a new thing here now. She's really uprooting the previous marriage when she uproots the zikah. So what Ula is saying is the koyach that she has to uproot the previous marriage when she faces her husband that was still alive, even after he passes away, that koyach continues. Since the zikah is only because of the previous husband, she could uproot that previous marriage. So retroactively, she's really uprooting the whole previous marriage. Umemela, there's no zikah. That's her koyach. So the Gemara asks on Ula's opinion now from the first Mishnah of the Masechta. Eis ve'Rav velo Ula. So Rav asks Ula, what did it say in the first Mishnah of the Masechta? So there, if you remember, it was speaking about a case where you have a woman that's married here and she's a relative. She's a relative to the brother. Once you're a relative and therefore it's an erve and there's no mitzvah of yibum in the case where there's an erve. Now, not only is there no mitzvah of yibum in the case where she's an erve, but even for a tzara. For the second wife, there's also no mitzvah of yibum. For the tzaras erva, there's also no yibum. And then on that, the Mishnah said, "What's if this erva was a ketana?" So kol she'yachaylu lemoin. If this erva was a ketana and she could have rejected the whole marriage, right? And then if she would have rejected the whole marriage, so then the tzara would have been the only wife. She's not anymore the tzara of an erva. But v'lay miyana, and she was not memayin. So tzarasa, so this tzara chayletzes v'loy misyabemes. So she could only do chalitza and not a yibum. So in other words, on one hand we say, because this tzara is a tzara of an erva, she can't do a yibum. But on the other hand, she'll still need to do chalitza because the erva is not even married minat Torah. She's a ketana. It's only a marriage midrabanan. So she's not really a tzaras erva minat Torah. So therefore she does chalitza and not yibum. That's what the Mishnah there said. But the question now is, what did it say here? If she wasn't memayin in her husband in his lifetime, so then after he passes away, so now what happens is, so the tzara has to do chalitza and not yibum. But the question is, why can't she be memayin right now? This ketana should revoke the whole marriage from the beginning right now. V'amai, according to Ula, so temayin hashta, let her reject the marriage now. V'takrinu l'nisui kamoi, and this uproots the whole previous marriage. It's as if she was it retroactively uproots the whole previous marriage, and therefore v'tisyavim tzarasa, and therefore the tzara could not go ahead and do yibum. Because she's not anymore the tzara of this erva. This ketana uprooted the whole previous marriage. Answers the Gemara, no. Over here we don't allow her to do that. Tzaras erva shani. By this case of the tzara of an erva, it's different. She can't do this. She can't be memayed anymore in this case. Why not? Based on something, also we had this earlier in the Masechta, the Tani Rami by Yecheskel. Rami by Yecheskel said the following halacha. Miana bebal. If you had this ketana and she rejected the marriage of her husband, Muteres laviv, she could actually go and get married to his father, even though usually this is a erva. You can't get married to your husband's father after he divorces you. But over here she rejected the whole marriage, it retroactively uproots the whole marriage, you could even get married to the father. Biyavam, but what if she was married to somebody and that person passed away and she fell for yibum and now she's rejecting the yibum? Asura laviv. Over here she will be asa to the father. What's the difference? So the difference is, Alma, what we see from this is, b'shas nefila. If her husband already died and she fell for yibum, niris kekalasai. Over here, because she's falling for yibum, she looks more like his real daughter-in-law. V'haraya, based on the marriage, she fell for yibum. So therefore people will say, how are you marrying your daughter-in-law? So she looks like a daughter-in-law. That's why she can't marry the father. So therefore we say over here the same thing regarding the case of tzaras erva. B'shas nefila, once she did not reject the marriage before the husband passed away and she fell for yibum, nires ketzaras bitay. It looks like a tzara of this person, of the other wife, which is, again, nires ketzaras bitay, so now the other wife looks like that she's a tzara of this girl that was married and is a bas to the brother. The Gemara is choosing, when it says Yetzaras Bitoy, the Gemara is choosing just one example of an erva. She looks like that she was an erva married to the brother, or it could be any other erva, not Dafke Bitoy. But the point is, after she fell for Yibum, it's too late for her to be Memayin, because to people it'll look like that the second wife was a Tzaras erva. Okay, now the Gemara brings more details regarding this miyun b'nigeya to this case of a yavam being memayin in the yibum. So Amarav, so there's a three-way machlokes here. So Amarav, Rav says miyun bazeh. What's if this ketana is memayin only one brother? She says I refuse to get married for the yibum to one brother, but she wasn't memayin in any of the other brothers, just one. So as asura lezeh. So now she becomes asa to any of the other brothers as well. Why? No, she was memayin. Yeah, l'chayda only in the zika. Yeah, she was memayin. Well, we'll see soon. The Gemara will bring back all his opinion, the machlokes we had before. But she was memayin just in one brother, not in all the other brothers. But it's before any yibum. Memayin one of them, so she becomes asa to all of them. Why? Mididahave abalas a get. It's similar to a case where she got a get from one of the brothers. Balas a get, if she got a get from one of the brothers, lav, so don't I say, even now that she got a get from one of the brothers, she becomes asa to marry him. As we learned before, once you get a get from one of the, from a yavam, that passes her of doing yivam, and so itzere lohulukulu, she becomes asa to all the brothers. It's the same thing. Once she was memayin of one of the brothers, she becomes asa to marry him, she becomes asa to marry all the brothers. Shmuel says, Miyana bazeh muteres lezeh. She's memayin in one brother, so she does not marry that brother, but she's still mutter to have yibum with any of the other brothers. And v'loy damyol balas a get. It's not the same like if she would have gotten a get from one brother. Why? Balas a get, when it comes to a get that she receives from one brother, so who the ka'avid ba? So he's doing something. This one brother is actually the one that's doing this action of giving her a get. So therefore, that get, which rejects her from everybody. Hacha, he kavd the bay. She's the one that's rejecting. So the Amra, she's saying, Loirina bach, I don't want to marry you. V'leitzavina bach, I don't desire to be with you. So therefore, bachu de loirina, it's you that I don't want to marry. Habachavra achreina, but your brother, the other one, I do want to marry. So therefore, if the rejection of one does not have anything to do with the other. Right, so what you see from here is, according to Shmuel's opinion, when she's rejecting this zika, it doesn't go back retroactively to undo the entire marriage. If it would undo the entire marriage, then you can't say it goes only on one brother, not on the other. She could reject only part of this zika. She's rejecting the zika that there is to this brother and not to the other brother. Ravasi third opinion, Ravasi says, Miyana bazeh muteres afilu. If she is going to come and say that I'm a mayan in this zika, but I'm only memayin in this brother. I'm not trying to uproot the entire connection I have here, but only this brother. So it doesn't even work. So she still would be allowed to go and get married even to that brother that she tried to reject him. So the Gemara wants to now understand what's Ravasi, the basis of what Ravasi says. So Lema, shall we say, that Ravasi holds like Rabbi Ishia. The Amar Rabbi Ishia said, Eina mima enes lezikasai. That there's b'chlal no such a thing. You can't be memayin in a zika. The zika is a connection that she can't reject. If there was a maimer or there was a biyah, that she could reject. But the zika itself, she can't reject. That's what Ravasi is saying, that even if she tried to reject one brother, it's not going to work. That's what it seems like he's saying. So the Gemara says, no, that's not the b'chad yavam hachanami d'matza akra. If there was only one brother here that could be miyavim, she would have the ability to reject even the zika, not like Rabbi Ishia. But hacha b'shnei yevamim maskina. We're speaking about over here that there are two brothers, and therefore what Rav Asi is telling us is ein miyon lechatzi zika. She can't come and reject and try to remove half of the zika, because as we said before, according to Ula, how does this miyon work? The miyon works is that she's really uprooting the whole marriage in the first place, the whole first marriage. If she doesn't want to uproot the whole first marriage, she just wants to uproot part of it for this brother and not for the other brother, she can't do that. She's not really rejecting the whole marriage. And therefore, for a half a zika, it doesn't work. Kiyasa Rav and Amar Rav Yechanan, Rav said in the name of Rav Yechanan, Mian abazeh moteres la'achin. If she does mian for one, so the mian works for that brother, but she's still mutter to the other brothers. And v'loi haiduloi. The others did not agree to Rav Yechanan's opinion. Who did not agree to Rav Yechanan? Man lei haiduloi. Who did not agree to him? Amar Abaye Rav. Abaye said that Rav did not agree. Because Rav said before that if she was memayin in one, so then she becomes asa to all of them. Right? Is that what Rav said before? Yeah, she becomes asa to all of them. So Rav disagreed with this. Rav Amar Rabbi Ishia. Rav says it's Rabbi Ishia that disagrees, because Rabbi Ishia B'chlal holds there's no such a thing as mian regarding a zika. V'amri la Rav Asi. And others say that it was Rav Asi. This we just said. Rav Asi said that if you memayin for half a zika, it doesn't take effect at all. Going to the next part of the Mishnah, it said Besham Yoimrim B'Fanav. The zika the miyun that is has to be in front of the husband. Tanya Amalem Besil Beshame. Besil said to Beshame that there's an incident that happened. Vahalei Pishain Hagamal. Pishain Hagamal, a name of a person. Miyana Ishta Shalei B'Fanav. So his wife rejected him and not in front of him, and the Chachamim accepted this. Amrulem Beshamai. So Beshamai said to Besil, Pishain Hagamal, you're bringing an eye from this individual. B'midah Kfusha Madad. He measured for his wife in a bad measure. This is just a mashal. It's like a person that has a bowl, and the bowl is supposed to be used on the inside, and you measure on the inside. And if you flip over the bowl on the bottom, sometimes there's also sort of a insert that you could measure on the bottom side, meaning he mistreated his wife. What does this mean? He mistreated his wife? He was eating from her properties. He was taking as much as he can from her properties, just trying to take advantage of her. So therefore, Chachamim lefichach madadulai b'midah kfusha. So therefore, in this case, Chachamim made an exception, and they allowed her to reject him, even not in his presence. But usually, you can't do that. So the Gemara says, wait a minute. What's the issue? What happened over here? If the story that happened over here is that this Pishan Agamal was eating the fruits from his wife's properties, so pshita nesuahi. So that means that he must have been fully married to her. If there was only a edis in the first stage of marriage, you don't eat from your wife's peiris. But how could that be? But v'ha'amri beishamai nesua loy mimaenes. Beishamai b'chlal holds after nisu and there's no mian at all. So how is she able to be mimayin and leave him? And says the Gemara, Trei Kitri of Dubei. Over here, Chachamim sort of made two exceptions. Kitri means a knot. Two knots Chachamim tied against him. Chachamim made two exceptions. Number one, that she should be able to be Memayin even though she's fully married to him. And number two, she should be able to be Memayin even though it's not in front of him. The next thing is said in the Mishnah is Besham Yomrim Bifnei Bezdin. Besham said the mian has to be in front of a Bezdin, and Besil said you don't need a Bezdin. Now Tnan Asam, there's the Mishnah in Sanhedrin that says a Chalitza v'Miyunin B'Shloisha, that Chalitza and Miyun has to be in front of three, which is a Bezdin. So Man Tana, who's the Tana of that Mishnah in Sanhedrin? Amar Rabba Beishamai. So that's Beishamai that says that you need a Bezdin. Abaya Amal Filatemi Beisilol. Abaya says no, it could be even Beisilol. At kan lekamri Beisilol eladolei bina mumchen. When he said you don't need a bezdin, it means you don't need an expert bezdin. Avashloisha binon, in front of three individuals, that has to be in front of three people. Kedetanya, as we learned this in the Braisa, Bishami Yemre bifnei bezdin. The mian has to be in front of a bezdin. Beisilol Yemre or Beisilol Yemre bifnei bezdin. Vishalei bifnei bezdin. Either in front of a bezdin or even not in front of a bezdin. But ve'elu maidim, they both agree shetzarich shloisha. That has to be in front of three people. Rabbi Yesiba, Yudav, Rabbi Lazar, Rabbi Shimon, Machshirim Mishnayim. They say that the mian can be done even in front of two people, in front of Adam. Rabbi Yesiba min Yaimi, Amar Rav Nachman, Halacha ka'isi yasog. We paskin over here like this pier that says that it can be in front of Adam. Beishamai Yemrim Tumoin. Beishamai say that she could be memayin once, and then we don't let her be memayin again and again. But the question is that the lashon of the Mishnah, as I pointed out when we read the Mishnah, is it says that she's mimayim, mima'enes, and it says mamtenes, she waits at Shetagdal until she becomes a gedayla. But then the Mishnah says again, v'timoin v'tinase, that she's mimayim again and then she gets married. So the Gemara's question is, v'hamiyan achadazimna, she was mimayim one time. Why does it say again, v'timoin v'tinase? Shmuel, so Shmuel says what this means is Acha Tagdil, until she becomes a Gedayla, V'taimer, and then she says Raitza ani b'miyunim marishainim. I still agree and I still hold on to what I said before, that I reject my previous marriage, and then she gets remarried. Until she's a Gedayla, if she wants, she could always go back to her previous marriage. Ulama says no, Tarti Katani. The Mishnah is actually saying two different cases over here, two different things. Oy shetimon v'tagdol v'teyaris. Either she's memayim once as a katana, and then we don't marry her off again. She becomes a gedayla, and then she could get married. Edison. Oi, but then the Mishnah was saying another thing. Shetimoin v'tinase la'alter. If she rejects her first marriage, according to Beishamai, so then, if she wants to get married again as a ketana, we'll fully marry her off, nisuin, and once she gets fully married, so according to Beishamai, she will not be able to reject that marriage again. So the Gemara now says the lashon of the Mishnah fits better with all this pshat. Bishlai me'ola haina diktani. According to all, we understand why the Mishnah says acha tagdil v'tinase. She becomes a gedola, and then the Mishnah says tinase, that she gets fully married. So why is the Mishnah using the lashon v'tinase? It's saying v'tinase because there's actually a word missing over here in the Gemara. It's supposed to say in the acha tagdil v'timoin v'tinase, right? And the way you read it is acha tagdil period. That's one case, and then there's another case, or v'timoin v'tinase. Even as a ketana, she could be memayin and she'll get fully married, and she's married forever. So we understand why it says v'tinase. The point is that the second option is that she should get fully married, so she can't do mian again. El Shmuel, but according to Shmuel, acha tagdil v'toimar miboyele. The point is that we wait until she becomes a gedola, and then she has to say that the miyun that I did before, I still stand by. The point of here is not the fact that we can remarry her fully as a ketana, but the point is that she should say when she gets a gedola that she still wants the miyun. So why does it say the lashon v'tinase? Kashya. So this remains a question. Okay, let's do one more shtickle over here from the Mishnah. So who is this ketana that we're speaking about that has to be memayin? She wants to reject this marriage. Her mother or her brothers married her off with her consent. But if they married her off without her consent, she doesn't even have to do this miyun to come in front of people, in front of a bezdin, or in front of the husband to be memayin. She could just literally walk out from the marriage. So Rab Chanina ben Antignes said, if she's so young that she doesn't even know how to keep the money of the kedushin that she got, so then she's too young, and over here the whole marriage does not take effect at all. She doesn't need to be memayin at all. Rabbi Eliezer Aimer, the actions for a ketana is worthless. So now when it says here worthless, it doesn't mean literally worthless. Rabbi Eliezer does agree there is a takana of kiddushin that Chachamim made for a ketana, but when he says klum, it's regarding the following things that he says here. It's as if she's just living with this man and he persuaded her to live with him, but it's not a marriage. And regarding what is he saying this? Regarding Bas Yisrael l'kayin, if she's a Bas Yisrael that gets married to a kayin, le'toichel b'truma, she cannot eat truma like a Bas Yisrael that usually could eat truma with a kayin, or Bas kayin li'Yisrael, a Bas kayin that gets married to a Yisrael, so usually it stops her from being allowed to eat truma. So over here, still toichel b'truma, the marriage will not stop her from eating truma. So for this, it's not considered to be a marriage at all. In other words, what he's saying is the whole point Chachamim wa Mesaken is she shouldn't be hefker. She should be married to somebody. But regarding the halachas of Trumah, she's not considered to be like married at all. Rabbi Eliezer Yaakov says, Kol HaKaveh mina ish. Anytime she's being held up, and the reason she's being held up to be with this person is coming from this man that she's with. Kilo hiishter, so then she's like his wife. Kol HaKaveh she'eina mina ish. But if she's being held up with him, but it's not coming from the man, kilo ein ishter. So then she's not like his wife. Now what exactly Rabbi Eliezer Yaakov is saying, the Gemara will explain. So sagt the Gemara, Amar Rav Yudah, V'amri b'masnita Tana, we learned in a Braise. Tana, Masnita Tana, that is. We learned in a Braise. Berishayna ha'yekaisven get mion. In the beginning, after she was memayin, they would give her a get mion. She would have a document to show that she was memayin. And what do they write in it? Le're'ina bei, I don't want him. V'le'tzavina bei, I don't desire him. V'le'san abaylis nasv'lei, and I don't want to be married to him. That's what they would write in this get. Kivin the chazdu the nafish dibura. They saw that there were too many words being written into this get, and omri, and they said the problem is asil ichlufe begita, that this is the way the get mian is being written is going to be confused with a get that's being written for a gedishin. So Rashi here says if it's a sefer that's an amaretz, might confuse the two, and he might write a get in the same way. Tekino hachi, they were misakin that a get that's written by a mian should be very short, concise, and clear. But yaim pliny, on this day miana plinis bas pliny bampana. On that day, this girl came and was mamayan and this individual. So it shouldn't be confused with a get.